This is actually the first day where we're doing two of these in one day.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'll do anything to talk about animals.
That's great. Well, that's one of my favorite topics as well. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sounds of Health. This is the show where we uncover inspiring stories, meet incredible people, and share valuable resources to help you boost your physical, emotional, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Dave MacNiven, and I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Kate Nicoll, the founder of Soul Friends. Their mission is to provide innovative clinical and educational programs that promote the healing benefits of the human-animal bond and nature for children, families, young adults, veterans, and first responders. Kate, welcome to Sounds of Health.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I'm excited to talk about our mission.
It's our pleasure. I was on your website just this morning before you came in and was really amazed at the work that you're doing with Soul Friends. With this show, what we like to start off with really is just your background and like what your story is, how you got to be with such an incredible organization and doing these things that you're doing.
Well, I grew up with animals, a dog, and my dad was a cat lover. And I think I was a pretty good owner of animals. However, shortly after my first husband died, 6 weeks after, I had two small children, and I decided to get a puppy, which everyone said, after being widowed for 6 weeks, why are you getting a puppy? But as a social worker, I realized that, my kids needed some sort of comfort. But I grew up in Holyoke, Mass. I went to Elms College and then Smith College for my master's in social work. I always wanted to know to be a social worker since sixth grade when I volunteered at a shelter for women with my mother. And I have had the great fortune and honor to work in all sorts of parts of social work. I worked in a hospital. I worked in a psychiatric hospital at the Institute of Living, where I met my first husband. I did home care. I worked in a children's clinic, and I just love helping people. Shortly after getting the puppy, my kids were struggling, following the death of their dad. They were young.
Yeah.
So I went to working part-time, doing hospice work. And then I actually worked for the Cove for grieving children for a period of time. And then, is it helpful to talk about the mission of Soul Friends, how I got to that point?
I'd love to kind of ask you a couple questions about that first. I'm so sorry that you went through that with losing your first husband. I can only imagine what that was like for your kids, but did you guys have pets before that happened, or was this puppy now new to the family?
Well, we had a cat before, and unfortunately, because he was immune compromised, we had to rehome our cat before his bone marrow transplant. But it was the first family dog that we had. Sam was his name. He was a husky mix, very energetic, and was a big comfort to my children in ways that I couldn't even put into words, really.
Sure.
Because I end up, now that I specialize in working with grieving children from as young as 3, to young adults. But there's no way to capture what, a little kiss on the face did, as they were, dealing with pre-verbal trauma really over their dad's death.
Now, were you working as a social worker at that time? Is that kind of the career that you were in?
Yes. So I've been a social worker. I'm going to date myself here, but like 39 years.
Oh, wow.
39 years. Yeah. And have never felt that it was a job, really. It's it's a career that I was passionate about, a career that it felt an honor to hear people's stories, to, come up with solutions for comfort and healing. But, animals do that in a different way that is really kind of unique.
Of course. So what was your role then? What role were you working in? What was your career like?
So I really was before Soul Friends, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I was doing hospice work. My first husband we had to move. My son was actually only 2 weeks old, my second son, when we had to move across the country for him to have a bone marrow transplant.
Oh, wow.
So our kids, we almost lost our house because
this was for your husband.
For my first husband, a bone marrow transplant. Yeah. And so my kids, kind of grew up in a hospital setting. Yeah. So the comfort upon returning, they were 18 months and almost 4 when their dad died. That to be out of a hospital setting, have a dog, just felt like the absolutely right thing to do, even though I had family members saying, you already have enough stress, why are you doing that? But Sam really opened my eyes to a lot.
Yeah. I mean, pets, as I think anybody who's ever had a puppy especially, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But well worth it, especially in the long run as they start to get a little bit easier to handle. So that was really your first, you never really used pets in any of the work you were doing, right? This was your first kind of experience in seeing what that impact is like?
Yeah, but then it got more personal, really, if you can say that, is I went to work in a psychiatric practice. I went to work, it was home care hospice, really. And so I went to work. I came home. I had remarried with my second husband, Carl, who I adore. And I came home from work, and a virus had attacked my cervical spine, so at my neck, and I became partially paralyzed from the neck down. For 9 months was total care. I kind of explain it like I was doing home care to receiving home care. So we had a blended family, 4 children, Sam, our dog, all the kids were under 6 years old. Yeah. And I was total care, wheelchair bound, had a home health aide, in a lot of pain. Sam, I noticed that Sam was responding to my anger, because I said, how can you believe that all this loss would happen, in a family, really, and particularly with my sons. But Sam would come over, respond to my pain and my anger. He would sit on my feet. And so I said, wow, what is this? I think part of my education, at Smith College, which was very clinical, was I was saying to myself, I need to know more about this. What is going on here? So I, a year after the initial attack, from probably Epstein-Barr virus, I took an online postgraduate certificate program in animal-assisted therapy and education. So
this is while you are recovered from this attack that you had, right?
Yeah, I've never completely recovered. I have a spinal cord injury with difficulties continually from the neck down for all this time. I actually worked with the Bureau of Rehab Services to try to return continually to gainful employment, but I tried 5 times. That's how passionate I am about the mission and teaching and mentoring. But it just, my body can't ever get to, a full-time status.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing is, I just want to share this part. So the name Soul Friends came from my husband, my first husband who died. We were reading this book, Anam Cara, which is Soul Friends in Gaelic. It's about spirituality, connection. And I was visiting his grave with my sister-in-law and my second husband. And I'm like, what am I going to call this agency where the animals help, and really, a therapy dog or a horse or goat, they don't care if your breath stinks or your hair's not washed. They're
Right,
there
yeah.
to care and connect. And my sister-in-law points to the gravestone where it said Anam Cara, and she said, the name of your nonprofit is Soul Friends.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it really is a full circle moment.
Yeah.
I believe that the healing that our nonprofit has given back to people all over Connecticut. Right now, I've been saying, we've served 10,000 children and families, and we need support to serve 10,000 more. And these are, the anecdotal narratives and stories of what happens when, people who are suffering with, interacting with a therapy animal. The thing that's kind of unique is I get it. I understand it. I lived it.
You've been through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so your own experience really informed you wanting to do this in the first place, but does it come out as like, oh, I can see it? Did you see this idea and you wanted to create this organization?
Yeah, it was really Sam. I just was like, what is this that I felt different? I was very angry at the world, given all the loss.
Of course,
and Sam would just lay next to me, and I'd say, I really wasn't even getting comfort from, my friends, even my children at that time, because I was kind of in a shut down, body, really disconnected.
Yeah.
But Sam was close and loving and giving. And so I just had a vision that this has to be brought to other people.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a calling, really. It just was, and as I said, kind of a full circle moment. Because when I was young and wanted to be a social worker, my mom told me that I said that I wanted to be a social worker and a zoologist. And then I said, oh, okay, so I'm actually doing what I was called to do.
Something that you really thought about when you were little.
Yeah.
That's
but I
awesome.
never would have thought how to put those two together, because
Right.
at the time, there was only, there was the therapy dog that responded in Columbine.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot. There was therapeutic riding in Connecticut, like High Hopes and
Yeah.
Ebony Horsewoman, but there wasn't a nonprofit that was incorporating mental health services and an array of therapy animals. So we really were the first in that regard. And also the thing that's unique about us is that we're not, sometimes people take their dog to work and things like that. Everyone, right now we have 18 staff people. All of them are getting postmasters, mentoring and teaching about the human-animal bond. So they understand what's going on neurochemically, or like you had said before, to see in front of you what's happening.
Yeah.
And how to use your gut, your intuition, your heart, and your brain to make sense of it.
That's really amazing. So how do you go from that initial idea and that desire to want to do this to serving 10,000 children and families? How does that even happen?
I'm not sure, except to say that I just believed it was going to make a difference. And we started with a small office in the center of Wallingford. A friend and I both got puppies at the same time. We trained them. My first therapy dog was Bear. He was a Corgi Shepherd mix, hardworking dog, taught me a lot. He actually, struggled in that he wasn't, sometimes you think of a therapy dog and you're like, oh, they're all together. But, some therapy dogs like to do their own thing and they're not always loving other dogs.
Sure.
And so he was complicated. I like all I think I've worked with 8 different therapy dogs. I tend to like a complicated, working dog. I like how their brains work.
Yep.
And I did have a lab, and that was interesting. And also worked with a Newfie who, they're very wanting to be close. Their purpose is to be connected to humans.
Right.
But I joke, the working breed, their job is to tell us what to do.
Right. Yeah. So you've worked now with a number of animals, but this first one was, what'd you say, a Corgi mix?
Yeah, Corgi Shepherd mix, who's absolutely beautiful.
Is that the picture you showed us?
No, that's my therapy dog, Emmett, who I have now.
Okay, gotcha. And what kind of dog is that?
Emmett is a cattle dog mix.
Cattle dog mix, okay.
So he has one blue eye, one brown eye. The kids like that.
Right.
They also like the fact that so I was a pet partners evaluator for therapy animals, to help with the test.
Yeah.
But they love the story that I thought Emmett was ready to work and be evaluated. And he failed the test twice before he finally passed it. So we talk about, working through things and, sometimes you don't always succeed. And all my animals, the dogs that I've worked with, almost all their commands were taught to them by children. So like a spin or a dance or leave it. And we would incorporate it in a clinical way.
Okay. So what children? Who's participating?
So we have, currently we have an office, a mental health office. We do about 300 visits a month. Which is, quite a bit, where we started with maybe 10.
Yeah.
So we also go currently to 7 schools in different capacities with our therapy bunnies and our therapy dogs. And there was a time early on where I'd gotten some grant funding, and I created curriculum programs because I wanted to measure outcomes like hopefulness, empathy. The first project that we did, I didn't share this part. The first project that we did, this tells you how I think big, is we did a year-long humane education study in an elementary school with the ASPCA of New York City. And right now it's my only peer-reviewed journal article,
really?
But
That's
it shows that, when you incorporate therapy animals at a young age, that kids, it increases their interest in animals, and animal lives in general.
So you're working across lots of different types of animals, right? And then what are the programs that you guys are offering?
Yeah. So we have in the office, we have therapy bunnies, guinea pigs, and therapy dogs. I must say, though, not every visit has an animal present because they deserve a day off or a vacation.
That makes sense.
Or on rainy days, particularly, Emmett just lays down on the tile. And most of the animals, particularly the dogs, if you say you want to go to work, they understand what that means.
Really?
Yeah.
They're going to the office.
They love it. The ears up, tail wagging.
That's awesome.
I just came from a school where Boo Boo, one of my interns' therapy dogs, literally was turning around, happy, prancing down the hallway on his way to see the kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've also had 8 pairs of guinea pigs. So I happen to, so for kids with trauma or loss, working with a prey animal, whether it's a horse, a guinea pig, or a rabbit, is really clinically interesting, and it helps normalize their responses to very intense, big feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So like fight, flight, freeze, collapse, when, they like see a horse running down a hill, or a guinea pig, hiding in his burrow, for protection. So they'll, it normalizes for kids to talk about safety, movement, their somatic awareness. Like, I have butterflies in my stomach. My head feels like it's going to explode, or so it's really incorporating the therapy animals enhances the discussion of mental health issues in a way that kids don't feel like it's therapy.
Right. Yeah. Now, you define those as prey animals. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So prey animals are any animals that, other animals eat. So,
okay.
So not prey and the prey. It's just.
So horses?
Horses are prey, even though they're big.
Yeah.
And so right now we have a therapeutic farm in Cheshire.
Mm-hmm.
We partner with All the King's Horses in Northford. We go to Hillside and Wilka, and then Operation Hold Your Horses in Harwington. So part of my vision too was to bring offices and programs across the state, and also to specialize close to urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
So like, kids from New Haven come to our Wallingford office or go to the Cheshire farm. And just to clear up, this is incorporating animals in a mental health way. We don't do any therapeutic riding.
Okay.
It's all on the ground, working on grooming, connection.
Connection, yeah, gotcha. Okay. Great. So it sounds like you guys are doing so much. How do you get people to come in? Like, why are they contacting you? Where do you find your clients? What kind of programs should people be thinking of when they think of you?
Well, right now we have a wait list for services. Earlier this year, we had up to 75 people on the wait list. So what we've been doing is kind of ramping up our staff a little bit the last 6 months. But we have kids who come who have separation anxiety or mutism or selective mutism, or their parents are getting divorced, or they lived through a trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Kids in foster care, kids who don't do well with traditional therapy. And lately, because of my own medically complex illness, I've been seeing a lot of medically complex children and adults.
Mm-hmm.
One program that we're going into the spring semester now is, which is full circle for me too, is we've partnered with the Cove for Grieving Children. So we're doing a 6 session for grieving families, where it's kind of phase-based trauma informed, where we watch the horses and they normalize the fight, freeze. Then we do grooming for regulation, mindfulness. And I'm presenting later this week at an international conference. And the thing that of the outcomes, the one that was really cool for me as a parent of grieving children, is that the children's grief scale showed that their grief scores stayed the same, but their growth. So, they'll talk in mental health about post-traumatic growth. The post-traumatic growth increased by six points it was statistically significant to incorporate the horses.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it was with parent and children.
What is the post-traumatic growth? Like, what is that defined as?
So it's when, unfortunately in life, there are times that people experience sad, scary, overwhelming things.
Absolutely.
Whether it's death, a car accident, abuse of some kind. So post-traumatic growth is the belief that, you can live through something sad and horrible. Like I look at my own life, I could be still laying on the couch, angry at the world, but because I had a sense of wonder and curiosity that the trauma didn't, smush in me, is that I was like, thinking outside myself. So post-traumatic growth is, and the animals help kids do that too. They normalize, no, you're not crazy, when you hide in the corner when a siren goes by.
Yeah.
No, your body is just telling you what to do to protect itself. Yeah. And so that too, and I can say that, like 100 times over as a therapist, but when one of the cool stories was a kid who started a fire that severely burned someone in his family. And we were doing therapy talking about how sirens were triggering for him. And he hid behind a chair, and Bear went around and licked him on the face. And he said, Bear is a good dog and I am a good boy. And I said, yes, that is true. And he said, can you be a good boy and have done something horrible that you didn't know? And I said, yes, because that's life, right?
Yeah,
is that
everybody makes mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. And he was one of my first clients, but I always, the narratives and stories that children share or families, they're sacred, really. Like, and animals understand that because they're non-judgmental.
Right.
They take you where you're at. If you're, depressed, they may come and put their snout under your hand so you pet them.
Yeah. They respond.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that post-traumatic growth is kind of the development of resilience then?
Yes.
Okay.
Hope and resilience.
Yeah.
Those are two research things I'm very interested in, is because out of developing hopefulness, you have resilience. Mm-hmm. And when my first husband was sick, and he was in one of those LAF bubble rooms for 95 days.
Oh, wow.
And I had a poster on the wall that said, no one can take your hope away. So I carry that in my heart, like in the work that I do with kids and families, and how animals help you know that, bad things can happen, but you can hold on to hope and believe that around the corner, you're gonna, if you normalize the skills and responses to when something horrible happens, next time it comes around, you can say, "Oh, that's my anxiety. That's my fear.
Right.
That's me getting flooded." And there's nothing like, whether it's a rabbit, a guinea pig on your lap, or a dog walking down the hallway, or being in there grooming a horse, that gets you regulated and connected to the world again.
That's really amazing. I can also imagine that just observing an animal's response to things also normalizes what's happening within yourself, and some of those natural reactions that sometimes people feel shame about are not shameful, really. And it's just kind of a natural thing. And we need to normalize that.
You said it beautifully right there, because I think that's the thing that is, it's kind of every time. We were just talking about this, Liz, one of our equine specialists, every time we think we know what we know. We'll go into a session where the horse is like, no, I don't think you know this. You need to learn
Right,
this.
yeah.
And another thing I did want to say was part of my journey too, that really changed the way I do the work and mentor folks is I became a registered play therapist. And I awesome. I kind of joke sometimes to my adult children who, are just amazing people. But I said, sometimes I play more with other people's children than I played with you. And thankfully, they're very forgiving. They're incredible adults. I did want to say, because I noticed that you said what in the beginning of, like sometimes you say, what makes you happy now, or is that the question?
Yeah, that is a question we used in the past.
So what I was going to say was that being a parent with Carl, my husband, who physically takes care of me when I can't walk and can't talk, and just to have parents of 4 adult wonderful children and to be a grandmother now is like what makes me happy. And to have a dog that right now, Emmett keeps my brain going and thinking like, what's next? And that's what you learn in play therapy too, is like, be curious about the world. Right. Wonder. And that's part of healing too, is if you shut down, you stop caring.
Yeah, for sure. You obviously were a listener of the first season, because I think we used that as the icebreaker question. Is what makes you happiest. So thank you for that callback. That's really great. So we don't have a ton of time. I appreciate you coming in and giving us your time. But the 2 things I just kind of want to understand a little bit more on is, so how big is this organization now? And how can people support it?
Oh, great. So right now we have 18 staff people. It's a combination of our new executive director, Riley, and I think 15 clinicians that work part-time, 1 soon to be full-time again. And then we have equine specialists. My husband, Carl, is 1, and Liz. We do, for all our horse work, we usually have 2 people there because you have to be horse savvy and for safety. So, usually people contact us, through our main number at the office or through our website. I will say the end of last year, because I retired and handed over the executive director position to Riley in November. And one of my friends from when our kids played baseball made a huge donation in my honor to keep the mission going, because I want the mission not to be about a person, but about the mission. So we are having a fundraiser coming up March 28th, where we're honoring 4 therapy dogs that have made a huge difference in Connecticut, because I feel it's important to work in partnership with other organizations doing good work. Collaboration is key.
Yep. That's great. And you've also written a couple of books, is that right?
Yeah.
So where can they find those books?
So right now, the only book that's currently on Amazon or Barnes & Noble is a children's book I wrote recently called Emmett Sees You. And it's about finding the glimmer and the beauty of life through the eyes of a dog, how a dog sees your sparkle, even when you can't. And one really neat thing, one of my interns now, as part of her capstone, she's writing a book about her therapy dog. Oh, yeah. So we're going to try and do like a series about, I have to get Mary Ellen, who works with us, to do it about bunnies too, about, like how therapy animals just make your day.
Yeah, that's great. So that book is this one here, The Emmett Sees You, and that's available on Amazon, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So people can go to your website. Is it Soul Friends?
Yeah, www.soulfriends.com. www.soul-friends.org.
Okay. And then we have Emmett Sees You on Amazon.com. So you can check out this book as well. And find all the various ways that you can support this amazing organization. When is that event again? You said it was in March, right?
March 28th at the Reading Room in Cheshire.
Okay.
And we're having the band is called Hans's Heroes. Hans was her therapy dog. So it's going to be, all therapy dog loving folks, hopefully.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So usually what we do to wrap up the episode is we ask you about something that you do in your daily practice that helps you to enhance your health. And it can be something that affects you physically, emotionally, financially, whatever, just to have something that you can share with the audience. Do you know anything you want to mention?
Yeah, I think because, I am physically disabled and have a spinal cord injury, there are days where my physical needs are more substantial. But what I've tried to build into every day is throwing a ball with my two dogs, Emmett and Fergus. Like I say to myself, even if I maybe can't go down the stairs and throw the ball on the lawn, if I could be at the top of the stairs because it's icy every day, to throw the ball to them like 10, 15 minutes, because the joy they have, the watching, just how they're living in the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're caught up in yourself, or, your finances, your health, your medications and things like that, they bring the joy in the moment because they know how to play. And that is something that we need to, take, particularly in a post-COVID world where we were in shutdown, like we really need to appreciate every living moment.
I agree with you. And I love that. I love that as your daily practice. That time with your dogs and being able to play and see the reaction in them, that's priceless. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your time today and for coming to Sounds of Health. I encourage all of you to visit Soul Friends. We appreciate Kate being here today. And that's a wrap on this episode. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And for all of you out there, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and leave a review wherever you're tuning in from. We love hearing from you, and we hope that you all continue listening and being an important part of our wellness community. Sounds of Health is brought to you by Nutmeg Insurance Advisors, and we're recorded at the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. A big thanks, as always, to our producer, Jason Carubia, and for the amazing music by Rob Hames. Every week, we bring you stories that inspire, empower, and help you upgrade your life. Thanks for listening.